And this lady here is Queen Mary. That photo was taken the day the ship was launched, which is when they named the ship. And I'm sure you'll agree the photographers really caught the excitement of the moment in this one here. I'll be very happy to have a ship named after her. And here's the Queen Mary putting into New York on a maiden voyage. That's 1st of June 1936. Okay, let's head this way. Actually 25 feet below the waterline, just to make you feel comfortable inside an 85-year-old ship. So.
Can't help it, man. I know.
At 3:55 on the morning of the 10th of July 1966, the Queen Mary entered a very thick fog. They couldn't even see the water in front of them. Up on the bridge there's a panel about this big, shows the location of the doors and their numbers, and each number would light up to show that that door had closed successfully. On this occasion, all of the numbers lit up except for one. And of all the numbers between 1 and 39, it had to be this one. Door number 13, this one here. But what they found was not a pleasant sight. They found an 18-year-old engine room worker crushed in this door. There was no sign of life, but he was given morphine just in case. He was then rushed to the ship's hospital, where he was pronounced dead. There's just no surviving that sort of injury. Now, I do know his name. I'm deliberately not mentioning his name though, because when we started the tours, his family did ask that we don't identify him on the tours. So out of respect for them, I won't. All things being equal though, he would still be around today. He'd be 72 now. But he is still seen and heard around this area. He wears a blue boiler suit. He's got black hair. People say they've seen him peeking around the corners, around the doors. People say they've heard footsteps behind them when there's no one there. And also, some people say they've heard someone whistling, again when there's no one there. The alarms were going off, so he knew the doors were going to close, but he needed to get to another part of the engine rooms. Fine, he's got plenty of time, 35 seconds. But on his way, he realised he'd left his wrench behind, or maybe he'd dropped it, and he came back for it. Then at some point, during this back and forth, he was approaching door 13 from this way. Door started closing, he tried to get across, didn't make it, and he was found just like this. Slightly bent down, arms by his side, door up against his shoulder here. People have also said they've heard a voice in this area asking, have you seen my wrench? And also, some people say they've heard someone whistling, again when there's no one there.
And also, some people say they've heard someone whistling, again when there's no one there.
Also, some people say they've heard someone whistling, again when there's no one there.
Go ahead.
Oh, they're just there, just like. Now, there's actually a cargo shop going on there. There's a lot of cargo. Mostly mail actually now. Let's go down a few more decks. So yeah, actually the RMS Queen Mary stands for Royal Mail Ship. So the lower bags of mail. It should queued under the contract with the British government to transport mail across the ocean. So yeah, that's what that's there. Anyway, we are now at the very front of the ship. So this is the bow, or the pointy end, if you want the technical expression. But psychics tell us this is one of the most active areas of the Queen Mary. I have had people on my tour so they feel a little bit uneasy in here. A lot of people say they hear voices in here, which are mostly German and Italian voices. Now that ties in with the fact that during World War II, this ship carried prisoners of war. Now the prisoners were treated very humanely. In fact, it was just over 2 years ago we had a former German prisoner of war came to visit. He said he remembered being at the back of the ship and being treated very well. But if those prisoners were caught doing something they shouldn't have done, they were put in here.
But during World War II, this ship carried prisoners of war. Now, the prisoners were treated very humanely. In fact, it was just over 2 years ago we had a former German prisoner of war came to visit. He said he remembered being at the back of the ship and being treated very well. But if those prisoners were caught doing something they shouldn't have done, they were put in here.
It's not a nice place to be. There was one time a couple of prisoners were caught scratching anti-British graffiti in the wall. So they were put in here. So another couple of prisoners started scratching pro-British graffiti in the wall. And just to show there was no bias, they were thrown in here as well. But it's not a nice place to be. You can get very hot in here, you can get very cold, you can get very claustrophobic. And I don't know if any of you suffer from seasickness, but if you do, you know you need to be up there on the deck in the fresh air, being able to see the horizon to get your balance as well. And down here you get none of that. It's an enclosed space, and it's also the very front of the ship, so this is the bounciest part of the ship. So being stuck in here for any length of time with seasickness must have just been horrible, I can't even imagine. So maybe some of that's imprinted itself here. People also see orbs in here.
Those orbs glow my freaking mind.
Yeah, people have seen them for decades. You know, balls of light flying around. Actually, over the last 5 or 6 months, a lot of people on my tours have been capturing orbs. You know, we're taking pictures, can't be seen to the naked eye, but there they are on the camera. Now, I have to say, it's absolutely personal opinion here. Most of what I think I'm seeing on those pictures is probably dust and light reflecting off it. Sorry, my personal opinion there. But some of the pictures I've seen were very bright lights. Definitely not dust, not someone's flash reflecting off of anything either. There was nothing there to reflect off of. So that's quite interesting. I've seen people also hold up their camera and you get the light picture, don't you? And there's something zipping around there, then it will stop, hover, zip around more. And that's not how dust behaves. But most of the activity in this area is connected to the most tragic event in the Queen Mary's history. Now, this occurred during World War II. If you remember at the very start of the tour, I mentioned that the ship carried thousands of troops and that she was being hunted. Well, despite that, she was not escorted across the ocean. No convoy. Simple reason, she was just too fast. There was no other ship that even dream of keeping up with this one. And if she was in a convoy, she could only go as fast as the slowest ship. And those troops were needed into battle quickly. So she was out there on her own. Speed was a weapon and a defence. Windows were blacked out so she couldn't be seen at night. And for the entire trip, she was zigzagging across the ocean. So if anyone's going to fire a torpedo at her, good luck with that one. They're firing on the fastest ship on the ocean that's moving all over the place. And also, back then, torpedoes travelled at 22 to 24 knots. The Queen Mary cruised at 28.5 knots. She could easily outrun torpedoes. There were 2 times during each trip when she was escorted. First was when leaving port. It took about 4 hours to build up to full speed. And the second time was when coming into port. It took a similar amount of time to slow down and come to a stop. So they're the times the ship's vulnerable. That's when she needs that protection. 2nd of October 1942, the Queen Mary was on her way to Scotland with 10,000 US troops on board. She'd reached the tip of Northern Ireland, and that's when the escort ships came up alongside to escort her into port. And the Queen Mary is still zigzagging. So those escort ships would take up positions up ahead and alongside, and they would zigzag either side of her. Now, one of the escort ships that day, an anti-aircraft cruiser, was the HMS Curaçao, veteran of World War I, a 4,000-ton vessel with 439 people on board. Now, at one point, an officer on the bridge of the Queen Mary called for the captain. When the captain arrived, he said, he's getting a bit concerned about the Curaçao. She's getting a bit close with the zigzags. The captain said not to worry, they've done this many times before, so carry on as normal, they'll keep out of your way. About 30 minutes later, there was what some people on the Queen Mary described as a bit of a bump. Now, that bit of a bump was over 81,000 tons of Queen Mary slicing right through the Curaçao. Curaçao had misjudged its zigzag, cut across the bow in front of us, and the Queen Mary went straight through the middle. Literally sliced that ship in 2. So, of course, there's 2 halves of the Curaçao in the water. There's people jumping in the water, crying out for help, and even banging on the sides of this ship as she passed. But the Queen Mary did not stop. She ploughed through that wreck and carried on going. Now, I know that sounds horrible, and of course it was. There's good reasons why this ship didn't stop. For one, it's still a big ship travelling at speed, and it would have taken about 10 miles just to do an emergency stop. And then she would have had to turn around and go back, and that leads to the main reason she didn't stop. The captain was under very explicit orders that he stops for nothing, and nothing means nothing, because this ship sitting still on the ocean would have been a sitting target for anyone who wanted to take a shot at her, and they could not afford to take that risk. Queen Mary was just too important. In fact, after the war, Winston Churchill said that the Queen Mary and the sister ship Queen Elizabeth, between them, undoubtedly brought forward the end of the war by at least a year. So, as I say, you could not afford to lose this ship. And then, of course, there's the fact that there's 10,000 troops on here as well. And you cannot gamble 10,000 for the sake of 439, which again is a horrible thought. And I'd have hated to have been the captain on this ship, but he had to have that war mentality. He did what he had to do. He just carried on going with a dent in the front up here. Now, 2 of the other escort ships did eventually turn round, and they went back to the crash site, and between them they managed to pick up 101 survivors, which means that 338 people lost their lives that day. So, horrible, horrible accident, and the news of the accident wasn't released for another 3 years, not till the war had ended. That would have been information for the enemy, and it would have been bad for morale as well, so it had to be kept quiet. Now, along the front of the ship here, people every now and then report the sound of a loud crashing noise and the sound of crunching metal, as if we're colliding with something. Now, obviously we're not, we're sitting still here. So that could be residual energy trapped here, repeating what happened in the past. The orbs I mentioned, people have been seeing those orbs for decades. A lot of people theorise they could be spirits of people who died in that accident. And they lost their lives literally on the other side of the hull here, not far from where we're standing now. And more unnerving than that, people also say they hear banging on the sides of the ship and cries for help. In fact, it was just under a year ago, got down here, before we even started telling the story, a lady turned around and walked out with tears in her eyes. And she said afterwards, we caught up with her, she said she's sensitive, she could pick up things, and when she entered the room, all she could hear was banging and crying for help, and it was too much, so she left. Now, obviously this is not a nice story, this is a horrible story, and something I tell everyone I bring down here on this tour is that I have told this story so many times. It's more times than I can possibly remember. Believe what you like about everything else I'm telling you on the tour. The one thing I can promise you is true is that this is a story I've never found easy to tell. It never gets easy to tell either. One reason, I lost family in world wars, as did lots of people. Obviously I never met them, but that's irrelevant. But also, I'm very aware, as are my colleagues, that this is a ghost tour. And for a lot of people, that's fun, it's entertainment, which of course is absolutely fine. You don't have to believe in ghosts. As I said at the start, some of our stories, they're novelties. You know, the guy who got spooked by the, who spooked the pilot, the lady in the third class lounge, we don't know who they are, they're a bit of fun. 338 people who lost their lives in that accident, though, we can name every single one of those people. That is not a novelty, that is a tragedy. But it is part of the ship's history. We do have to remember that. We have to remember the cost of war as well. So there we go, that's why we tell the story. Anyway, if you want to come up here, take some pictures at the front, feel free, and I will get back that way and just wait for the door there. Have a look.
Clive, how many people fit in there before?
What do you mean?
Prisoners?
During the prisoners, we've actually got no record how many were kept in here.
Okay.
Because I mean, this ship would sometimes carry 5,000 prisoners, but usually they were kept in the rooms because it was usually they'd drop the troops off. They go US to UK with all the troops, empty them all off, and then they'd bring back wounded soldiers and prisoners of war. So they'd actually get the same rooms the troops were in. But most of the prisoners were absolutely fine. And it actually got to the point where they'd allow a lot of prisoners just to walk around the decks.
Oh, wow.
And it's the same actually in a lot of, because where I'm from in the UK, the town there had a prisoner of war camp. And it got to the point where they're just letting them walking around town, they'd do community work, they actually got to be really well liked. And a lot of them then stayed as well in the UK because they met people, they became friends, some of them got married, and they're just young men, they didn't want to be in a war,
Yeah.
So. Yeah, after that accident, there was a dent in the front of the ship here. She arrived in Scotland. They actually filled up the bow there with concrete as a quick fix because they couldn't hang around in Scotland because it's in range of enemy bombers. She then sailed back to Boston like that and then got a proper repair job in Boston. So, yeah, imagine concrete fill up that space there. Okay. Everyone got their pictures? All good? Right. Let's head out this way.
I'll wait for you. She didn't load it.
Oh, wow, that's deep. Wow. Stayed behind. That is crazy down there.
Eight.
There's 8 more decks down?
So we are going to be below the waterline, yes.
Excellent.
Actually 25 feet below the waterline. Just to make you feel comfortable inside an 85-year-old ship. So, it's better than a walk.
You don't have to storm it.
No, that's true.
If anybody dies.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, wow. Haunted house? see this over here?
People experience different things. Some people say
Thought that was somebody right there.
I'm not heard people say that. Now, something I will point out, there is water down here. But do not worry, we are not sinking. But do not worry, we are not sinking.